Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 10th. This is Wake Up with KERA News, and I'm Andrew Garcia. The sun is out today despite the Mavericks' loss to the Lakers last night. Maybe Luka left us with a little bit of sunshine on his way back out of North Texas. We'll enjoy light breezes and highs in the mid-80s today. Later in the show, we'll hear why a group of North Texas lawmakers tried to block a recent UNT lecture on young Palestinian female journalists. We'll get right into that after today's news. At least 19 international students at the University of Texas at Dallas have had their visas revoked, that's according to college officials. But UTD did not identify the students or the reason their immigration status was terminated. They're among hundreds of students nationwide who've had their visas revoked by the federal government as part of a crackdown on student activism. That's after last year's widespread campus protests against Israel's war in Gaza. At least 20 UTD students were arrested last year after state troopers took down a pro-Palestinian encampment. The Dallas City Council agreed to pay out a settlement of up to $65,000 to a man who was beaten by a former DPD officer. The former officer was also under investigation for two other incidents, including an incident where they allegedly shot someone in the face with less lethal ammo during the 2020 George Floyd protests. The council voted to approve the settlement at yesterday's meeting with no discussion. Five Republican state lawmakers last month told the University of North Texas to cancel a scheduled event they felt was anti-Semitic. But the university went ahead with the event. History professor Nancy Stockdale presented the Dr. Emil Sulia Commemorative Lecture on Middle Eastern Politics last week. Lucinda Breeding-Gonzalez of the Denton Record-Chronicle spoke with KERA's Sam Bekah about what happened at the UNT event.
Lucinda, could you tell us more about how this situation got started?
Denton County GOP state representatives Mitch Little, Richard Hayes, Jared Patterson, Andy Hopper, and Ben Baumgartner demanded on March 5th the cancellation of the Dr. Emil Salia commemorative lecture on Middle Eastern politics within 48 hours. They objected to Dr. Nancy Stockdale's presentation, Palestinian Children and the Politics of Genocide, because they consider the word genocide anti-Semitic.
What was the lecture exactly about?
Stockdale's lecture focused on Palestinian girls who have become citizen journalists and storytellers in Gaza during really heavy bombardment. The lecture framed the children and teenagers' work as happening during a time of war, which Palestinians and organizations like Amnesty International say is genocide. Now, U.S. politicians and groups such as the Anti-Defamation League argue that using the term genocide is problematic.
So, were there any protests or efforts to shut the lecture down?
It was really civil, with no protest outside of the UNT Student Union, and there were no disruptions during the event. UNT students who attended the event did say they wanted to continue to resist efforts that they say are censorship on the part of Texas Republicans and Governor Greg Abbott, who support Israel and the size and scope of Israel's response to the Hamas incursion in the fall of 2023. And since the October 7th, 2023 incursion, UNT students have organized some pretty large demonstrations for Palestinian liberation and in support of their return to Gaza. UNT student and faculty activists have also called on the university to disclose any support from arms manufacturers such as Raytheon and have demanded that UNT divest from corporate partners who make or sell military equipment or support the U.S. defense resources in Gaza.
So what have some of the people who attended the lecture had to say?
One guest pressed Stockdale to state whether she condemned the attack on Israel by Hamas on October 7th. And this was really the only time that tempers kind of flared, with students and some of the guests kind of reacting vocally. Stockdale called the question disingenuous and said that Not only did her lecture demonstrate that violence and murder against innocent people is unacceptable, but that repeated demands for critics of Israel to denounce Hamas oversimplifies the ongoing strife in Gaza. And Stockdale also said that demands to condemn Hamas kind of imply that the October 7th incursion represents the start of strife in the region. And then there was a man who identified himself as a Zionist Jew born and raised in North Texas and said he was dissatisfied with that exchange. And then he asked how to approach a real conversation about Hamas without being told, it's a talking point or a trap. And that started a thoughtful exchange in which Stockdale invited people to be themselves, tell their stories and listen to other people offer their stories. And Stockdale said that she came to her role as a professor of modern Palestine through Jewish studies. She studied in Oxford and lived for a time in Israel. And she said that the more you listen, the more you learn, but that in that process, your opinions and understanding will probably shift.
That was the Denton Record Chronicles' Lucinda Breeding Gonzalez, speaking with KERA's Sam Bekah. Well, the Mavs lost against the Lakers last night, 112-97, but there was still plenty of joy to be heard throughout American Airlines Center as beloved star Luka Doncic made his long-awaited return to Dallas after being unceremoniously traded earlier this year. On his way to racking up 45 points, every Doncic three-pointer received raucous cheers, much louder than those for the Mavericks themselves. Doncic even teared up during a touching pregame tribute video detailing his 6 years with the Mavericks. Despite all the good vibes, there was still a lot of hurt feelings over the way Luka was traded by Dallas's general manager Nico Harrison, inspiring numerous "Fire Nico" chants throughout the night. And the Dallas Art Fair is finally here. It kicks off this evening with a special preview benefiting the DMA, the Nasher, and Dallas Contemporary. General admission ticket holders will be welcome tomorrow evening and beyond. For more information and other Thursday things to do, visit KERA.org/calendar. Thanks so much for listening to Wake Up with KERA News. I'm your host, Andrew Garcia. This show is produced and edited by Shardae White and Bekah Morr. For more news in your inbox, visit KERA.org/wakeup. That's where you can subscribe to the Wake Up with KERA News newsletter and get good morning vibes from our colleague Catherine Hobbs. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KERATX. You can tell us if you cried during that Luka tribute video. One more day to the weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.